Karasanov, when you are watching A News Now, let's take a look at today's top stories. The alleged Bondi Beach attacker Naveed Akram has been charged with 59 offenses, including a terror charge. U.S. President Donald Trump orders a complete blockade of sanctioned oil tankers in and out of Venezuela. And Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev visits the UAE as energy and economic cooperation between the two countries continues to grow. Good afternoon. The suspect in the Bondi Beach terror attack in Australia has been charged with 59 offences, including terrorism. Australian police confirmed on Wednesday that the man accused of opening fire at the Jewish event on Sunday, which left 15 people dead, is now facing multiple charges.
One of the two suspects in Australia's deadliest mass shooting in 30 years has been charged with 59 offences. They include 15 murders, a terrorist act, 40 counts of wounding with intent, placing an explosive, firearm offenses, and displaying a terrorist symbol. The alleged father and son opened fire on a Hanukkah celebration at Bondi Beach on Sunday, killing 15 people aged between 10 and 87 and leaving 21 others hospitalized. It was an assault that has shocked the country and heightened concerns over anti-Semitism and violent extremism. The father, 50-year-old Sajid Akram, was shot dead by police at the scene, while his 24-year-old son, Naveed, emerged from a coma on Wednesday after also being wounded by officers. Authorities say the pair had traveled to the southern Philippines, a region affected by Islamist militancy, weeks before the attack, which police believe was inspired by Islamic State ideology. The Prime Minister has faced criticism that his government failed to do enough to curb anti-Semitism during the two-year Israel-Gaza war. While intelligence agencies are under scrutiny over how Akram was able to legally obtain the high-powered firearms used in the shooting, prompting a pledge of sweeping gun law reforms.
We need to learn any lessons that are learnt from this, undertake stronger action, undertake any legislative change, undertake any additional powers that are needed across the board. To work with the Jewish community, we want to stamp out and eradicate anti-Semitism from our society. We want to also stamp out the evil ideology of what would appear to be, from the investigators, an ISIS-inspired attack. That has no place, that sort of hatred.
Albanese also confirmed that the son had been briefly investigated by Australia's Domestic Intelligence Agency in 2019 over suspected Islamic State links, but said no evidence at the time suggested he posed a threat.
U.S. President Donald Trump has said he's ordering a total and complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers going into and out of Venezuela. It follows an escalation of military operations and a pressure campaign against its current leader. Here is the latest.
And at this moment, Russia wants to get...
In a post on Truth Social, US President Donald Trump says he's ordered what he described as a total and complete blockade of sanctioned oil tankers entering or leaving Venezuela. He also branded the country's leadership a foreign terrorist organization. The move follows last week's seizure of a sanctioned tanker off Venezuela's coast and comes amid an expanding US military presence in the Caribbean. Hours earlier, Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro, at a public rally in Caracas, called for peace, but accused Washington of using drug trafficking allegations as a pretext to control Venezuela's oil, gas, and mineral wealth. He urged oil workers to organize an international protest to defend free trade in Venezuelan crude.
The claims about drug trafficking are fake news, a lie, an excuse, since they cannot accuse us of weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, or nuclear missiles. They invent another pretext to create another Afghanistan, another Libya, and with moral authority and with God's blessing, I say, no more Vietnam, no more Afghanistan, no more Libya, no more Iraq, no more endless war.
The confrontation is rooted in years of hostility. the Trump administration does not recognize Maduro as Venezuela's legitimate leader and has backed sanctions alongside a growing military presence in the region. According to US Southern Command, American forces have struck more than 20 vessels in international waters near Venezuela in recent months, killing at least 90 people, accusing them of smuggling narcotics into America. However, blockades are traditionally treated as acts of war under international law, and critics in the United States argue such action would require congressional authorization. Economically, the impact is already being felt, with Venezuelan crude exports falling sharply as tankers remain offshore to avoid seizure.
Here is our Washington correspondent Ubi Shibander with more.
A number of major developments coming out of Washington on Tuesday as President Trump declared a total oil blockade against the country of Venezuela. The U.S. president accused the Maduro government, which he called a, quote, illegitimate regime, of using proceeds from oil exports to finance drug trade and terror activities. Venezuela is a major oil exporter, and the U.S. blockade, backed by a sizable Navy armada in the Caribbean, is expected to further weaken Maduro's grasp on power. It remains to be seen whether the U.S. government will launch a full-on military assault to force Maduro from power. The White House also issued new travel restrictions on citizens from 5 countries: Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, South Sudan, and Syria, all now banned from traveling to the United States. Administration officials said that the restrictions were placed to prevent the entry of foreign nationals from countries considered by the Trump administration to be unstable or lacking reliable civil documentation and criminal records. Previously in place restrictions on travel for citizens from Turkmenistan into the United States were partially lifted by the Trump administration. President Trump said that he will give a nationwide address live from the White House on Wednesday at 9 p.m. local time. So a number of major announcements expected from the American president. And lastly, Pentagon officials announced that they will not be publicly releasing unedited footage from the 2 strikes launched on September 2nd against a boat attempting to smuggle narcotics in the Caribbean, despite demands from congressional Democrats. These have been your latest updates from Washington, D.C. I'm Ubi Shibander, A News.
Senior U.S. and Chinese defense officials have met in Washington, D.C., signaling a cautious restart of military-to-military dialogue after a month of tension. The talks focused on risk reduction and communication as both sides try to manage rivalry and avoid accidental escalation in the Indo-Pacific. Mahnur Maktoum has more from Beijing.
Senior U.S. and Chinese defense officials met in Washington this week in the latest indication that military-to-military dialogue between the two powers is gradually being restored as both sides seek to stabilize an increasingly volatile relationship. The talks focused on risk reduction, regional security assessments, and the importance of maintaining open lines of communication, especially as military activity intensifies across the Indo-Pacific. While neither side has showed any shift in core strategic positions, officials described the engagement as candid and necessary, showing a shared interest in preventing misunderstandings and managing competition responsibly. The talks form part of efforts to rebuild communication channels between the world's 2 largest militaries after a prolonged period of tension and limited contact. Relations had sharply deteriorated over the past year amid a series of confrontations, with Beijing also suspending several defense dialogue mechanisms following U.S. sanctions on Chinese defense officials and advanced technology restrictions, leaving both sides without reliable crisis management channels. The resumption of talks show a growing recognition in both Washington and Beijing that strategic competition must be managed to avoid accidental escalation. While deep differences remain, the renewed military-to-military engagement is aimed at restoring basic trust, improving transparency, and ensuring that rivalry does not tip into open conflict, even as geopolitical frictions continue. Mahnur Maktoum, A News, Beijing.
Fighting between Russia and Ukraine continued on Wednesday, with both sides reporting new attacks and damage amid ongoing talks for peace. Authorities in Russia's Krasnodar region say a Ukrainian drone strike has injured 2 people, damaged several houses and cut power to the area. Russia's defense ministry also claims its forces struck 154 Ukrainian targets during the past 24 hours and taking control of Novoplatonovka in the Kharkiv region. Ukrainian authorities say explosions were witnessed in the capital, and there were more than 150 combat engagements along the front line. It says its forces hit Russian troop positions and repelled attacks in several eastern sectors. Ukraine's president has been in The Hague seeking political backing and joining European leaders to launch a commission to compensate Kyiv for war damage. Our correspondent Anita Sharma reports.
Welcome to This Day in Europe, as Ukraine's president secures more political backing in The Hague and attends the formal launch of a commission designed to compensate Kyiv for hundreds of billions in damages due to Russia's invasion. Volodymyr Zelensky addressed both houses of the Dutch parliament, thanking the Netherlands for its financial and military support, including Patriot systems, F-16s, artillery, and drones. He said every Russian war crime must have consequences for those who committed them. Last week, Prime Minister Dick Schof's caretaker government announced an additional 700 million euros for Ukraine. The country spent over 15 billion since the Russian invasion, with another 7 billion planned for next year. Zelensky also met with his soldiers getting medical care from the Ardenburg Rehab Center. The facility specializes in helping service members heal from severe injuries. After a lunch with the Dutch Prime Minister and a visit with King Willem-Alexander, the Ukrainian president was off to the World Forum with Schof. They met with the Council of Europe and key European leaders, including the president of Moldova. Backed by 34 countries, they launched the International Claims Commission, which builds on Ukraine's existing register of damage. That already contains more than 86,000 claims from individuals, businesses, and public institutions affected by the war. The commission now begins the complex task of reviewing those claims and determining compensation amounts, a process expected to take years. This, as the EU debates using profits from roughly 210 billion euros of immobilized Russian central bank assets to underpin long-term loans for Ukraine. Now, there's growing resistance to that plan, with countries including Italy and Malta joining Belgium to push for tighter legal safeguards. Belgium holds most of those assets and fears Russian retaliation. Tomorrow's summit in Brussels aims to secure a political commitment from EU leaders to move forward with the loan, even though final legislative approval will not come until the European Parliament votes in late January. For A News, I'm Anita Sharma in Arnhem, Netherlands.
The younger son of Hollywood film director Rob Reiner has been formally charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. It's after Nick Reiner's parents were found dead in their Los Angeles home at the weekend. If convicted, Nick could face life in prison without parole or potentially the death penalty. His lawyer says the 32-year-old is not yet medically fit to appear in court and is currently being held without bail. Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss the European Union's pivotal debate over how to finance Ukraine's war effort as leaders meet in Brussels. Stay tuned.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
These are our people that are dying every day because these missiles and drones are still able to fly.
Dual goods that are found in the battlefield.
The U.S. and other countries have sanctioned Vladimir Putin directly for the invasion.
Armenian trade with Russia has increased like 300-400% since 2022.
Росія у Вірменії використовує різні методи обходу санкцій.
dual-use goods, which can be non-military goods like washing machines, can be then dismantled and they are used for military purposes inside Russia.
All these components were produced by the countries who provided the sanctions against Russia.
So the trade is two ways: banned Western goods, which are sanctioned, going through Armenia, and Russian goods going out, like diamond, golds, and other expensive raw materials going out from Russia through Armenia to the West.
There is a reluctance on the side of the Western institutions to impose any sanctions on Armenia.
And welcome to Primetime. What a show we've got lined up for you. In a complex world, clarity is power. Two hours live, diplomacy dissected in a spin-free environment. That's Prime Time with me, Guy Schoen, weekdays on A News.
Welcome back to A News. The European Union faces a pivotal choice on how to finance Ukraine's war effort as leaders meet in Brussels, divided over using frozen Russian assets or joint borrowing to fund Kiev through 2027. To break down the stakes and the political divisions, we're joined by political analyst Enrique Cosero, speaking to us from Madrid, Spain. Mr. Cosero, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mr. Cosero, why has financing Ukraine for 2026 to 27 became such an urgent issue for the EU?
First and foremost, I think that the main issue here is not funding Ukraine as much as is Europe is taking or is assuming the conscience of self-defense. And as von der Leyen said minutes ago, self-defense or Europe's defense is the main goal here, and having some sort of correlation, the main threat is Russia, and the main battlefield, of course, is Ukraine, which everybody knows is in Europe. So we come back and we just close the circle that having that war in European soil means huge threat for Europe. This is not Russia-Ukraine conflict anymore. And Europe is trying to take self-consciousness about what the actual threat means.
Mr. Cosero, how realistic is Plan A, using immobilized Russian assets as a reparations loan? And what legal or political risks does this option carry for the EU?
Of course, as in many other ways and many other aspects in life, the main trouble here is within the European Union. As much as Italy, Bulgaria, Malta, Czechia, and especially Belgium are not so willing to mobilize those 210 billion euros coming from Russian assets. Most of them are in this Euroclear company or bank or entity. 10 million, I think I remember 10 billion are in France, but France is so pro European or von der Leyen's thesis. So France is not being trouble in here, but those countries that I said before, Italy, Bulgaria, Malta, Czechia, and of course Belgium, whose Prime Minister Bart de Wever has said that is not a way to act against Russia, is going to be the main trouble here. Of course, afterwards we got that Russia is going to complain about this, and we know how's Russia when it complains.
So what does Plan B, joint borrowing, mean in practical terms?
Ukraine got right now $135 billion in shortage from I think it's 2024, 2026 calculated, consolidated, and Europe is gonna help with 2/3 of that debt, which means 90 billion euros in order to oxygenize the Ukraine economy because of is struggling with the war. This is a sort of a classical movement. Someone needs our help. We're going to loan the money, and we can't forget this is a loan, but it goes along with some sort of confidence, confidence or faith about how fast Ukraine can recover, can be rebuilt after the war. And here, for me, is the main concern. Europe can give to Ukraine those $90 billion euros. Okay, that's fine, and that's a loan. And being a loan, it gotta be returned. And Russia doesn't want an Ukraine that can recover too fast, too quick, or almost instantly, as the European Union needs to recover that money. So we're here. I think is the real trouble. Europe can give $90 billion to Ukraine, but for how long that money is gonna not be recovered by the European Union? And Russia has a lot of talk to do here, because Russia wants a weak Ukraine.
So regarding Plan A and Plan B, which option is more likely to gain consensus at tomorrow's gathering?
Probably, I think finally eventually it's going to be a mix of both of them. I think that, or I believe that the European Union is going to give money as a loan to Ukraine, and we have to consider that the Plan A, which is the immobilizing those 210 billion euros from Russian assets, is sort of cautionary tale, retaliation, put the name you want it. So I think a mix is gonna take place, because whatever the money I can help Ukraine with is not gonna be affected by the mobilizations of Russian assets. So they're not belong to the same set, and they can be mixed.
Mr. Corsero, how significant is the U.S. absence in shaping the EU's current dilemma?
The United States is participating, it's collaborating with Ukraine, especially with intelligence. I believe that the United States is behaving in the way the country is behaving, or the American diplomacy is behaving, because since 2008, United States has no interest in the Atlantic. I mean, Europe is not a priority for the United States. The Pacific is a priority for the United States. China is a real threat. Whatever's going to happen with Taiwan, their alliance with Japan or Korea, South Korea, or Australia is more urgent for the United States. And right now, the United States is giving or collaborating with intelligence with Ukraine. Witkoff is here in Europe. I mean, Jared Kushner is on the negotiations. I think it was Monday when they met with Zelensky in Berlin. So they're putting on the table, they're putting on the board their pieces, but they're not gonna put boots on the field, that's for sure. And let's see that what's going to be the next reaction from the United States in the event that eventually is going to happen, in the event that Russia claims or complains about whatever the European measures are going to be. With that answer, with that reaction with Russia, we will measure the United States position about the peace, and we know for sure, because we've seen it before from Donald Trump, that probably, I think it's quite the probability is quite high. He's going to push Volodymyr Zelensky again in order to reach an agreement. I don't think he's going to try to put in risk his relationship with Vladimir Putin. On the other side, he's trying to help in the way they consider the help has to be done to Ukraine. But a bad reaction from Putin, and it's going to be a bad reaction from Putin, is going to give us again the measure of the implication of the United States in the conflict.
Mr. Carcero, what happens if EU leaders fail to reach an agreement this weekend?
We are talking about the regional scene of Europe, that all the decisions has to be consolidated. That's the reason why I said before that probably whatever is going to be a mixed solution between Plan A and Plan B, and because Italy, Bulgaria, Belgium, and all the rest countries can long this for I don't want to say forever, because Ukraine's situation is critical, but they can take all the time they want in order to reach an agreement. And it's immobilizing those assets is not going to be a piece of cake, and it's not going to be something that those countries want, because their financial systems are going to be quite damaged if that happens.
And also looking ahead to the 2026, how do you see Europe's role in the Ukraine war evolving? Deeper engagement or growing strain?
I think most of all, I'm praying for most agile, most quick, and most immediate responsive Europe. And I think that's the main problem here, that Europe now, we have to consider Europe now is competing with countries that their governments got no trouble in taking decisions and having the things done, which are Russia, United States, and China. And the European Union got this collegiate or common discussion or way of making decisions, and it's not helping. That way of doing things is not helping, and we just talk about that. About okay, let's gonna apply Plan A. Let's gonna immobilize. Let's gonna block those assets, and we got 5 countries that are opposing to that solution. So it's hard, and for me, the main trouble here to resolve is how fast, how quick the European Union is taking decisions, is making decisions in order to be in the international stage, playing as a player, indeed. And first, they have to resolve. First, Europe has to resolve that problem, and then I hope for an increase in growing, because there is no other way. There is no sort of you can be blocking here. You can be unresponsive in the situation we are living, because probably we missed as Europeans a very huge opportunity when Russia was weaker than it is right now, and this lack of responsiveness is now paying the price.
Enrique Carcero, thank you very much for your insights and for joining us on the program. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
After the break, we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Stay tuned.
On World Business, we meet the boardroom leaders making market-moving decisions. And find out how leaders are dealing with continuous technological disruption.
Well, they arrived in Karabakh in late August, early September 2022.
Yes, Ruben Vartanyan'ım.
Just remember what he did in Karabakh.
Ruben Vardanyan onlara sona kadar mübarize ideyasını aşılayırdı.
You are going nowhere. Is that the message?
I will stay with my people here. Whatever you will face it, we will face together, yes.
He is criminal for Europe, for NATO countries, and for Ukraine. That's why we need to arrest him.
Welcome back to A News. Now let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev is visiting the United Arab Emirates at the invitation of President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The two leaders met in Abu Dhabi today to discuss bilateral ties, including energy and economic cooperation. Later, they attended the opening ceremony of the Games of the Future 2025, a global sports event combining physical and digital competition. Our correspondent Kate Wilson is reporting from Abu Dhabi.
Hello from Abu Dhabi. You're joining me at the opening ceremony of Games of the Future 2025, which has just concluded right behind me here. Now, we witnessed a show-stopping spectacle of dancers, of contortionists, all combined with nostalgic graphics harking back to some games from our childhood that we all remember. And that's the very essence of these games that are going to be taking place over the next few days, combining physical sport with digital esports, combining that traditional real-world competition with what many say will be the future of sport, that world of esports. Now, athletes from over 65 countries will be attending the Games, and they'll be competing across 11 disciplines. So we'll see basketball, we'll see football, but we'll also see battle royale games and drone racing. And it's about that fusion which what really makes these games special. Now, these athletes will be competing for a total prize fund of $5 million. So there's a lot at stake here, and it's only the second time that these games have taken place. So many will be asking during these games, is this the future of sport? So time will soon tell, but it isn't all fun and games. The president of Azerbaijan also attended this opening ceremony, and he already had a meeting with the president of the United Arab Emirates. The meeting covered many things such as trade, energy and economics. So a lot will be taking place over the next few days, and I'll be bringing you all of those latest developments from not only that meeting, but from the games, which we're going to sit back and enjoy now.
An International Monetary Fund team visited Tbilisi in mid-December to review Georgia's economy. The IMF said growth remains strong, with GDP expected to rise by 7.3% in 2025, led by IT, transport and education. Unemployment has fallen to a record low, though it remains structurally high. Inflation rate reached 4.8% in November, above the central bank's target, mainly due to higher food prices. The IMF said foreign reserves hit a record $5.8 billion, supported by strong services, exports, remittances, and the shift away from dollar deposits. The central bank has kept its policy rate unchanged at 8%. A major financing agreement has been signed for a new cross-border railway linking China, Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan. The multi-billion-dollar project is being billed as a game-changer for regional trade, opening new routes between Asia and Middle East and Europe. Fariza Kalimurzuna is in Almaty with more.
A financing agreement has been signed for the construction of the China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan railway, a new cross-border rail corridor in Central Asia. The agreement was signed between the China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan Railway Company and the syndicate of Chinese banks. The project is valued at $4.7 billion. Around $2.3 billion will be provided by China as a 35-year loan to the joint project company, which will be responsible for its repayment. The remaining $2.3 billion will be contributed as equity capital, with China holding a 51% stake in Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan 24.5% each. The project stands out for its technical complexity. It includes 50 bridges and 29 tunnels with a total distance of around 120 kilometers, meaning nearly 40% of the route will run through tunnels or across bridges. In Kyrgyzstan, the railway will extend for 304 kilometers. The corridor is designed as a southern branch of the Eurasian Continental Land Bridge. It's expected to open access to markets in Southeast Asia, West Asia and the Middle East, including Turkey, with onward connections to the European Union. The route will follow the Kashgar, Turugart, Bakhmal, Jalalabad and Dijan corridor. It will also serve as an alternative transit route bypassing Kazakhstan, offering a new logistics option for freight moving between China and Central Asia. Construction began at the end of last year following a joint announcement by the three presidents. And Kyrgyz President Sadyr Japarov says the project could generate at least $200 million a year once operational. Fariza Kalimurdzina, Almaty, A News.
Uzbekistan has begun exporting electricity to Tajikistan as part of regional efforts to manage energy shortages. The move comes as Tajikistan's leadership promises to end power rationing by 2027 through new generation projects. Sevil Rajapova has more.
Uzbekistan has increased electricity exports to Tajikistan as part of broader regional energy cooperation. Current supplies reach up to 2 million kilowatt-hours per day, with the possibility of higher volumes as Uzbekistan's generation capacity grows. The exports come as Tajikistan continues to face seasonal electricity shortages. President Emomali Rahmon has said the deficit is driven by population growth, industrial expansion and reduced water inflows into the Nurek reservoir. He has pledged that electricity limits will be lifted by September 2027, following the launch of 2 solar power plants with a combined capacity of 500 megawatts in 2026, and the commission of a new turbine at the Rogun hydropower plant. Until then, electricity imports remain critical. On a yearly basis, Uzbekistan plans to export up to 2.6 billion kilowatt-hours of electricity to neighboring countries, including Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. In 2025, Uzbekistan became a net exporter of electricity for the first time, shifting from years of independence. Electricity exports rose by more than 50% this year, exceeding $129 million, underscoring the growing role of cross-border energy trade in Central Asia. It is Sevil Rajapova reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
International aid agencies are warning over Afghanistan's worsening humanitarian crisis. The World Food Programme says that millions more people are facing hunger this winter as funding shortfalls threaten life-saving aid. Our correspondent Tamim Bahiz has the latest from Kabul.
According to the World Food Programme, more than 17 million people in Afghanistan are now facing acute food insecurity this winter, up from 14.8 million last year. The agency says reduced funding is having a serious impact, particularly on children. It estimates that 4 million children are currently suffering from malnutrition and warns that child mortality is likely to rise during the harsh winter months. The World Food Programme says it urgently needs $468 million to continue food assistance for 6 million people through the winter. But funding gaps remain significant, and concerns are echoed by Save the Children. The organization says more than 1 in 3 children across Afghanistan will face severe hunger this winter, an 18% increase compared to the same period last year. In its latest report, Save the Children warns that over 9 million children, around 36% of the country's child population, are expected to experience crisis of or emergency levels of hunger by March 2026. The situation is particularly severe for the youngest and most vulnerable. Nearly 3.7 million children under the age of 5 are currently acutely malnourished, while around 1.2 million pregnant and breastfeeding women are projected to require treatment for malnutrition. Aid agencies say without urgent funding and sustained access, the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan will continue to deteriorate as winter sets in. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A News.
Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss Kyrgyzstan's accession to the Trasika multilateral permit system and what it means for regional connectivity. See you shortly.
And welcome to Primetime. What a show we've got lined up for you. In a complex world, clarity is power. Two hours live, diplomacy dissected in a spin-free environment. That's Prime Time with me, Guy Schoen, weekdays on A News.
If you had to repeat this path, would you do it?
I don't know.
A journey marked not by maps, but by the ones we carry.
9.
Yeah.
9.
This story stretches across continents, empires, and religions. From Germany to Caucasus.
Das ist eine schwere Frage. Doch heute nicht.
Story of success, friendship, deportations, and disappearances.
Ночью пришли, арестовали моего дядю, и больше о нем мы ничего не знаем.
A community that rose and almost disappeared.
Его расстреляли в 1937 году. Был расстрелян как немецкий шпион.
This is a story of a migration that shouldn't have survived.
Da gibt's eine schöne Geschichte.
Welcome back to A News. Kyrgyzstan has taken a significant step toward deeper regional integration by completing procedures to join the multilateral permit system of the Trasika Transport Corridor. The move allows Kyrgyz carriers to operate across multiple countries using a single permit, cutting costs, saving time and opening new routes to Europe, Turkey and the Black Sea region. To break down what this means for trade, transit and competitiveness, we are joined by Nurbalat Nushambayev, academic at Turan University, speaking to us from Almaty, Kazakhstan. Dr. Nushambayev, welcome to the program.
Hello, thank you for inviting us.
So how significant is Kyrgyzstan's accession to the Trasika multilateral permit system from a regional connectivity perspective?
Surely this initiative is very important for the nation like Kyrgyzstan as a landlocked nation. It has a strategic meaning for them, first of all, because it creates a bridge. It reduces all the barriers. Definitely, it reduces the price and the time of the delivery of goods. So therefore, I would say it's not only for Kyrgyzstan, but for the whole Central Asian region to accelerate the logistical aspects and sending the goods from the east to the west. So therefore, I think for the long term, it will definitely impact the amount of Kyrgyzstan export to the Europe as well as to the Black Sea.
So in practical terms, how does a single Trasika permit change daily operations for Kyrgyz transport companies?
Sure. First, I think we have to define the limit or the power of Trasika at first, because the Trasika was initiated early 1993. Then it was, by the way, introduced by the European Union. Now we see Central Asian countries, including Kyrgyzstan, they are working at the same time at numerous logistical projects, at numerous geopolitical logistical aspects. So therefore, the Trasika is one of the most important system networks. I think Kyrgyzstan will not be single in this framework. It should be added other nations too. Because if we look at the members of the Trasika, Kyrgyzstan is the first from the region, as the 8th number of this Trasika multilateral framework. So therefore, I think in order to increase the practical aspects, to remove all the additional trade barriers, the other Central Asian states should work on too in order to increase the regional capacity of the turnovers of the goods. So in practical terms, definitely it will reduce Kyrgyzstan movement, in particular South Caucasus and the Black Sea and the European nations. Because usually Kyrgyzstan's truck drivers, Kyrgyzstan goods by land, when they exported their products, it took more than months. Most of the time, the truck drivers, they spent the time at the borders for additional checkings and documents. I think this this document will remove all the other bureaucratic additional process, and they will definitely reduce the time, and accordingly the cost of the deliveries will reduce too. So therefore, it will have for long-term regional impact, for surely.
Dr. Nushanbayev, could this development help diversify Kyrgyz export routes away from traditional corridors?
Exactly, but we have to look at the map or the Kyrgyzstan's location at first, because Kyrgyzstan in the last decades had increased the trade volume with China. Also, they have initiated numerous projects with Chinese investment too. But the Trasika, it will be one of the alternative roads, alternative direction of the Kyrgyzstan's foreign policy at first. But traditionally, if we look at, usually Kyrgyzstan sends their goods to Europe by passing Kazakhstan, either Uzbekistan. Now we see the land roads, the traditional northward roads by China are facing some challenges. We are not sure to how long time it lasts. But for now, at least for the nation like Kyrgyzstan, who sends specific amount of exports to the European market, it's a very important step to diversify. I think it's a strategic step rather than tacticals, finding alternative roads, reducing all the bureaucratic procedures. But for regional aspect, definitely Central Asia in the last couple of years, since 2022, had been changing totally the trade routes in Eurasian landmarks. So therefore, not only Kyrgyzstan, but the whole Central Asian nations, now they are reconsidering the trade routes in Eurasian mainland in order to change the situation. Because historically, the trade routes in Central Asia, in most of the post-Soviet nations, it was created, all the infrastructure to the northward, by Russia to the Europe. Now I think we are seeing the transformative periods, including Kyrgyzstan, are trying to diversify the trade routes for the long term. I think it's pretty significant for the whole region in total.
So especially what types of goods or sectors stand to benefit the most from easier access to Traseka routes?
Traseka routes, we have to make sure that Traseka routes, it's roads with giving additional, removing all the barriers. So it's kind of, we can compare with the visas, specific visas for the nation who transport their goods. So I see in the upcoming 5 years for Kyrgyzstan, mostly they may increase the products which needs which relied on the time. For example, the medicals, many other exports and imports which need to be delivered in a short amount of time. Definitely those part of products will increase. But Traseka will definitely, the other products like raw materials and etc., which need a road specific pipelines, definitely it will be beyond these treaties, but Traseka, it will help to connect daily used products in medicine, in pharmaceutics, and in many other fields, connecting the Central Asia on the other one hand, the Black Sea nations, and the whole European Union on the other hand.
Dr. Nushanbayev, finally looking ahead, what further steps should Kyrgyzstan take to maximize gains from Traseka membership?
Surely, Traseka membership, the first nation in Central Asia, it shows the significance of Kyrgyzstan at first. The second, it also shows the multi-vector foreign policy aspect of Kyrgyzstan. Because most of the time, Kyrgyzstan usually in Central Asia considered as an island of democracy, the kind of having one-sided. But in the last few years, we have seen that Kyrgyzstan trying to balance on their foreign policy, not only in foreign policy, but in logistics, in trades as well. So movement of Traseka actually it lasted for a long time, but finally Kyrgyzstan government was able to sign and to join to this multilateral framework. I think it's going to promise a lot, but the real case, the forecasting will be defined by the time. To what extent Kyrgyzstan's trade turnover will be competitive at first. The second is Kyrgyzstan is as a landlocked nation, to what extent is able to deal with their neighbors. Also, to what extent this initiative will increase the trade volumes in the upcoming years. So therefore, there are more questions than answers now, but definitely as a region, we expect a great rising turnover of the trade volumes between Europe and the Kyrgyzstan within the framework of Traseka.
Nurbalat Nushanbayev, thank you very much for talking to A News. We truly appreciate your time and expertise. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're up to date with world news for the hour. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News for more.